Chicago, this is an emergency. There is a third-round tackle who cannot dominate third-string players, and Poles is already signing replacements. There is a defense that finished with 35 sacks and barely $1 million available to fix it. And in the middle of all that, the names Kayvon Thibodeaux and Denzel Ward are in every single report today, directly tied to the Bears. An entire franchise could change over the next few weeks. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you are a real Chi-Town fan, and do not move because what is coming is going to leave you speechless. First story, Kieran Amegadjie. Look, going to keep it straight with you like always. There is a situation on the Bears' offensive line that nobody is talking about with the honesty it deserves, and it is time to put it on the table with no filters and no sugarcoating. Kieran Amegadjie came to Chicago in the 2024 draft, taken in the third round with the expectation that this would be a starting caliber tackle who could really compete in this league. That was the promise. That was the vision. And here is the question 2 seasons later. Where is that promise? Because what we have seen so far looks nothing like what Ryan Poles thought was coming when that pick was used. Let us go to the numbers because numbers do not lie and they need to be looked at clearly. In the 2024 rookie season, Amegadjie appeared in only 6 games with just 1 start. The overall Pro Football Focus grade was 40.3, pass blocking grade was 39.4, run blocking came in at 54.6. Just so we're on the same page about how bad that is, those are grades that say that player is not ready. 5 penalties and 8 pressures allowed in a small sample is a huge red flag for any organization that takes protecting the quarterback seriously. And what happened in the 2025 season? Here's the truth. It did not get better. If anything, the arrow kept pointing down. Amegadjie came into camp fighting for the left tackle job early in the summer, but that competition evaporated fast. Chicago kicked over to right tackle thinking maybe that would be a better fit, and that did not work either. Missed the first preseason game with a leg injury. When came back, was running with the third string, and the PFF grades in those preseason games were 61.6 overall, 59.2 in pass blocking, and 60.2 in run blocking. And that was against third stringers, folks, against players just trying to hang on for a back-end roster spot. That is the critical point here. If cannot dominate third-team guys in August, the message from the organization is loud and clear, even if nobody says it at the podium. And that message is already showing up in real moves. What moves? The Bears re-signed Braxton Jones, brought in Jedrick Wills Jr., all of that happening while Ozzie Trapilo tore the patellar tendon in that knee in the playoffs, throwing availability for 2026 into serious doubt. Trapilo's situation forced some emergency work, sure, but the reality is Chicago now has Theo Benedette, Wills Jr., and Jones all battling it out for the left tackle spot. The winner is the starter. The loser is the swing tackle off the bench. Now here's the question. With all that competition in front of everyone, where exactly does Amegadjie fit in that picture? Because the honest answer right now is that there is no comfortable spot for on this Bears depth chart. The team spent a third-round pick, but the actions are speaking a whole lot louder than anything Ryan Poles could say in a press conference. Here's what makes this so rough for Amegadjie. 24 years old, third season, and Ben Johnson just showed up as the new offensive coordinator with a new system and a new set of expectations. The message is brutal, but it is what it is. Either this kid walks into training camp in the best shape of life and shows something completely different than anything seen so far, or there is a very real chance that does not make the final 53 in 2026. There is belief in second chances here. Young players can flip the script if the mindset and the work are right. But hey, también una mirada clara a la realidad, sin romanticismo. And the reality right now, today, is that Kieran Amegadjie is at the lowest point of a young career, and Chicago is already making decisions that go beyond giving just one more shot. This season might be the last one Amegadjie spends in navy and orange, unless brings something different, something that makes Ben Johnson turn around and say, this kid belongs in my offense. Stick around because this is only the beginning of what is happening up front with this team, and what comes next might interest you even more. But that is nothing compared to what is coming, Because if the tackle situation already has a lot of Chi-Town folks nervous, what is going on with the pass rush should have everybody up at 3 in the morning, wondering if this team is truly ready to compete in 2026. Second story, Leonard Floyd and Danny Dennis Sutton. All right, need everyone locked in here because this is where it gets serious for real. The Chicago Bears pass rush finished the 2025 season with only 35 sacks as a team. 35, and they were near the bottom of the league in pass rush win rate and quick pressures. That, Chicago friends, is not some throwaway stat. That is a structural weakness that can cost you games in January. Now, what does the Bears cap space look like right now? Ryan Poles just signed linebacker Jack Sanborn on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal and defensive tackle James Lynch on a 1-year, $1.3 million contract. After those signings, Chicago has roughly $1 million left on the 2026 cap, $1 million in a league where a good edge rusher on the open market runs you anywhere from $8 to $12 million per season. So here's the serious question. How is Poles supposed to fix the most urgent need on this defense with $1 million to work with? The answer has dos piezas y las dos important. The first part involves a name Bears fans know well. Leonard Floyd. Bleacher Report just put out a piece saying the Bears are the best fit for a Leonard Floyd reunion. And to be fair, the logic is pretty solid. Floyd is 33 years old in that mercenary veteran phase of the career, but still disrupts plays. Last year with the Atlanta Falcons, the stat line was 19 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 19 quarterback pressures, 11 quarterback hits, and 5 tackles for loss in 15 games. That is not washed. That is a player who still has gas in the tank. Daniel Popper from The Athletic estimated that Floyd could land something around $8 millones this offseason. Makes sense. Floyd generated pressure on 13% of pass rush snaps, putting among the top 50 players in that metric for anyone with at least 200 pass rush snaps. That rate was actually better than the previous 3 seasons. This is not a decline story. This is staying relevant. Here's the huge problem that people are glossing over. The Bears have $1 million left. Floyd might want $8 million. Those two numbers do not live in the same financial universe. Now, with some restructures like Kyler Gordon's deal, which could free up close to $6 million in cap space, Chicago could create more room. Even so, $8 million for a 33-year-old edge rusher when this roster has other serious needs. That is not the smartest way to use that money, which is why the real answer, the smarter move, comes from a completely different lane. It comes from the 2026 draft. It comes from a name you need to lock into your memory starting right now. Danny Dennis Sutton, this kid is coming out of Penn State, 6'5", 256 pounds, and the numbers are, no exaggeration, historic for an edge prospect. One of just 5 pass rushers since 2015 with a pressure rate above 17%, a run-stop rate below 7.5%, a true pass set win rate over 27.5%, and a relative athletic score above 9.4 out of 10. And who are the other 4 in that exclusive club? Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Laiatu Latu, and fellow draft prospect Malachi Lawrence. That is the company Danny Dennis Sutton is keeping. On top of that, put up 8.5 sacks and 42 tackles in each of the last 2 seasons at Penn State. The frame fits exactly what defensive coordinator Dennis Allen wants in a more physical edge presence on the outside. If the Bears get a shot at Dennis Sutton in the second round, that is massive value for this franchise. Compared to the Packers, who are still leaning on an aging core sin desarrollar, talento joven con ese techo en el edge, a move like this in the draft would push Chicago years ahead in the roster building curve. The Lions did exactly that with their defense the last few years, and now they are legit contenders. The Bears can copy that blueprint. So here's the question, plain and simple. Do you want a 33-year-old vet on a 1-year, $8 million deal who might give you a decent season, or do you want a prospect with Myles Garrett-level athletic traits in the second round who could be a cornerstone of this defense for the next 10 years? The right answer feels pretty obvious, but every Chicago fan should sound off because this is a real debate. If that caught you off guard, wait until you hear what is next, because the third story today is the one that is going to have the whole city of Chicago buzzing all week. And just when you thought we were done with the big offseason headlines, the truth is, the most explosive part, the piece that could completely change this team's ceiling, is still on deck. Because there are two names floating around in today's reports that would make Soldier Field shake different in 2026. Third story, THIBODEAUX and DENZEL Ward. Now this is where you need to sit back and really lock in. It is the storyline that decides whether the Chicago Bears are just a playoff team in 2026 or a team that can actually take the NFC North crown and make a real Super Bowl run. There is a massive gap between those two realities, and the choices made over the next few weeks are going to determine which side of that line Chicago lands on. Let us start with Kayvon Thibodeaux. Sports Illustrated recently dropped 6 hypothetical trades they would like to see in the NFL, and the Bears are directly tied to a deal for the New York Giants edge rusher. And the truth is, the logic behind that trade makes more sense than it might at first glance. Thibodeaux went 5th in the 2022 draft, 5th overall. That tells you everything about the talent level and expectations around this player. In 2023, had the best season so far with 11.5 sacks. A new career high that pushed into the conversation as one of the better young edge rushers in the conference. Since then, there have been 8 sacks over the last 2 seasons and 20 DENZEL games, which has raised legit questions about consistency. But here's the key point that has to be understood. Why would the Giants even think about moving off Thibodeaux? Because New York just added Brian Burns to the pass rush rotation, and more importantly, they used a first-round pick on Abdul Carter in the most recent draft. With those two in the mix, the reality is that Thibodeaux's snaps in that defense get a lot harder to find. General Manager Joe Schoen has said all the right things publicly, backing Thibodeaux's future in New York, but in the NFL, ¿cuántas veces hemos visto a ejecutivos decir una cosa al micrófono y hacer lo contrario cuando llega la oferta correcta? Now, why does this make sense for Chicago? First off, the Bears have been hunting for a difference-making edge rusher all offseason. They were tied to a possible Max Crosby trade before that situation cooled off, and Crosby stayed with the Raiders. That need did not disappear. Edge is still one of the few spots on this Bears roster without a true elite game-flipping player. Second, Thibodeaux is still on a rookie contract. For a front office like Ryan Poles' built around cost control and squeezing max value out of draft capital, a young player with first-round upside on rookie money is exactly the kind of asset that gets circled. The hang-up is obvious, though. Any Thibodeaux trade probably comes with an extension attached, and that makes the financial math way more complicated with the Bears already tight against the cap. But there is a bigger vision here. If Thibodeaux comes in and lines up opposite Montez Sweat, that completely reshapes the conversation about this Bears defense. Imagine the heat that duo would put on every quarterback in the NFC North, including Jordan Love in Green Bay and Sam Darnold in Minnesota. Folks on the south side and north side know the monsters of the Midway have always been defined by the ability to wreck quarterbacks. That is the Urlacher legacy, the Peppers legacy, the 85 Bears legacy. Bringing that kind of edge presence back is going right to the roots of this franchise. And as if that trade talk was not enough for one day, here comes the second half of the defensive storyline dominating today's reports. Matt Okada from NFL Network floated the idea that the Bears should make an aggressive call for DENZEL Ward from the Cleveland Browns. And that is a concept worth a real conversation. Ward is 28 years old, a cornerback with 5 Pro Bowls, including the last 3 seasons straight, and 4 of the last 5, has 2 years left on a 5-year, $100.5 million contract. There have been ongoing concussion issues in Cleveland, a real medical concern no front office can just wave away. But when healthy, what Ward would bring next to Jaylon Johnson in Chicago could form one of the best cornerback duos in the entire league. Think about what that would mean. Chicago already signed Kobe Bryant on a $40 million deal to replace All-Pro safety Kevin Byard III. Bryant won a Super Bowl with Seattle, came up with 4 picks in the regular season, and was a key piece in the Seahawks playoff run. That is a quality addition. But the Bears also lost safety Jaquan Brisker and 2 other safeties this offseason, which means the needs on the back end go well beyond just one player. A bunch of draft analysts, including someone like Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network, are projecting Chicago to use the 25th overall pick on safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. Jeremiah specifically said McNeil-Warren has the size, length, and playmaking chops to fill the hole Brisker left and might actually be an upgrade at that spot if the Bears go that route in the first round and then flip a mid-round pick to bring in Ward and that big contract. That is a massive investment in the secondary. Here's the question straight up. Can this team realistically handle that financial hit on top of everything else that has already been committed this offseason? The honest answer is that it is complicated, but there is a clarity to what Poles is trying to build that deserves respect. This is not about just being competitive. This is about winning in January. And when you have Caleb Williams at the most important position on the field, the pressure to surround that talent with real help on both sides of the ball is enormous. Remember what these Bears went through in 2020, Chinko? They made it to the divisional round. That was a big deal for this franchise after a long drought. But in that divisional round, the defense's limitations got exposed against the top NFC offenses. The inability to slow down elite passing attacks inside the NFC North was a problem all year. Ward and Thibodeaux on the same roster would be a statement that Chicago is not just aiming to get back to the divisional round, but to blow past it. While the Packers keep betting on a slow build with Jordan Love still settling in as the full-time starter, and the Lions are already in all-in mode after their own recent success, Chicago has a real window that cannot be allowed to slam shut because of a lack of aggression. This city, this fan base that has waited decades for a real contender, deserves a front office that pulls the trigger when the moment calls for it. So the real question is not whether Poles should try to land Thibodeaux or pick up the phone on Ward. The real question is how aggressive Ryan Poles is willing to be to push this team to the next level in 2026. And the answer to that will start to show up over the next few weeks. Stick around because ahora viene el cierre, and there is a real desire to hear your take on everything that was laid out today. All right, Bears fans, we are at the end of this video and need you locked in because there are questions that need answers in the comments right now. We talked about Kieran Amagaji, a young third-round tackle walking into year 3 with the chair shaking. And here is the question straight to you. Do you give one last shot or is it time to move on from that experiment? Drop your take, porque hey, Bears fans, que todavía creen en este chico, and it is time to hear why. We talked about Leonard Floyd and the pass rush with just $1 million left to spend, and about prospect Danny Dennis Sutton, who has the athletic profile of the best edge rushers of the last decade. The question is simple: bargain veteran or draft prospect? What is the right move for the 2026 Bears? And the biggest question of them all, the one that might split this community in half: if Ryan Poles can trade for Kayvon Thibodeaux and also swing a deal for Denzel Ward to line up next to Jaylon Johnson, are the Chicago Bears the favorites in the NFC North this year? That question needs your answer in the comments because this is exactly the kind of debate that makes this community special. Years have been spent building this space for you, for the fans who live and breathe Navy and Orange, for the ones who suffered through Trubisky, the ones who toughed out the ugly seasons, and the ones who are now watching Caleb Williams give us real hope that this team can be something different. This community is a family, and families show up, stay informed together, and celebrate together. If you are not part of this family yet, now is the time. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, porque en los próximos días van a caer más bombas sobre los Bears, and you cannot miss any of it. Hit like on this video if you believe the Bears have what it takes to reach the Super Bowl in 2026. And if you still have doubts, hit like anyway, porque el debate siempre es bienvenido aquí. Day Bears, Chicago does not stop, and neither do we. See you in the next video, Bears faithful. Bear down